Now, the first thing he says, our Father who is in heaven. What does this mean? This is the perfect psychology. It's what I call it, the perfect psychology of prayer. It's attention. Our Father in heaven. Now, our Father, and you will hear in America someone say, well, Abba Father, it means daddy. No, it doesn't. It does not mean daddy. Don't call it daddy. Now, let me just give you an example. It does carry endearment, but when we use the word daddy, the reverence is not there. Now, if you go to Nigeria or you go to Zambia, it's quite an amazing thing that you'll see, especially among the Christian and the traditional families. Dad's pretty much a big deal, okay? And when a child, a daughter, a son, comes to their dad and they say, Father, they'll stick out their hand like this. And I'm not going to do it. It changes a little from culture to culture in Africa. But they'll stick out their hand. They'll take their dad's hand. They'll put their other hand here or here. And then they'll do something of a curtsy. A sign of respect. There's an inclination. So it's a term of endearment. Your Father who loves you with a love, see, the love of God is the most painful doctrine in the Bible for the preacher and the poet. Because even you can't grasp it, and even what you can grasp, you can't tell. And it makes you at times hate words and just want to push over the pulpit and walk out and never preach again. The hardest thing you will ever have to do as a Christian is to believe that God loves you with the quality of love with which he loves you. You can't fathom it because there's no other example of it. Not a father, not a mother, nothing. It's the kind of love that in our deficiency is so glorious that it almost feels like it's wrong. When Peter sees Christ manifest his glory and he says, depart from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. What he's saying is, this is wrong. A man like me should never see something like this. And that's the love of God. A man like me should never see what this is. So unconditional, so strong, so unbending and unbreaking. He loves you with a standard that goes beyond every other standard. If I could do anything in preaching, it would be to show God's people how much he loves them. That is the key, because it's the love of God that compels us, not our love for him, but his love for us that compels us. So, on one sense, it's our Father. Our Father. But then remember, your Father is in heaven. He's the King of glory and worthy of great fear. Now, in the father-son relationship, and I know this well, there can be two types of fear. One of them is devastating. The other one is wonderful. So, a child that has an inconsistent father. So one day the child comes and says, look at Daddy, what I drew. And the dad looks at it and goes, this is wonderful. I'm so proud of you. But the next day the man's having a bad day and the little child comes and says, look, Daddy, what I drew. And he smacks the kid upside the head, tears up the paper and throws it away. That inconsistency, the child never knows. What am I going to get? That's not the love of God. It is a love so consistent, immutable, so pure. So, you say, what is love, Brother Paul? I spent a great deal of time trying to understand what it is. And it's actually quite simple. It is self-giving. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. He gave himself. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself. He gives himself to you. If he gave you every perfect world he has ever created, it would be nothing compared to him giving himself to you. I want you to picture this. There's a picture of John F. Kennedy in the Oval Office, and he's seated behind the desk, the most powerful desk, most powerful man in the world, and the picture is being taken from across the room. This is a room where if you're called in there, you could tremble. If you're a leader of other nations, you could tremble because now you're before the desk of the most powerful man in the world. And the beautiful thing about this picture is the hole going through where the legs pass, you see his little son in that hole playing with a toy. So here you are coming across the crystal sea through the blood of Christ, perfectly and completely loved, while seraphim bow their heads and cry out, holy. He loves you, but keep this tension. It's a beautiful thing once you start grasping it, not only doctrinally, but experimentally, you begin to grasp it, is this wonderful amalgamation, this wonderful flow of two currents of this extraordinary security. I'm loved by God, and this extraordinary reverence, not just in his greatness and his power, but his beauty that is literally incapacitating. I believe that we must be transformed to go to heaven, because if we were to catch one glimpse of even his beauty, one glimpse of even his love, it would fracture our minds and break us in 1,000 pieces. The beauty would be too great to behold, and that's why there's always a tinge of madness in a prophet, because his mind has been fractured, not just by the greatness of God, but the beauty of God, the love of God. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. This is a trinity of sorts. It is one petition. It's three facets. It goes in and out and flows, all of them together, and yet each of them is distinct. Hallowed be thy name. Holy be thy name. What is the chief prayer? Once you acknowledge who God is, what is the chief prayer? Hallowed be thy name. What does that mean? Hallowed, you could identify it as holy, but that doesn't go far enough, because there's different facets of the doctrine of holiness. What we're talking about here is separateness. To say, hallowed be thy name, is that God, your desire is that God's name be placed in a category all to itself and above every other category of names, of persons, places, or things. One of the most ridiculous things you can ever say is keep God first. Keep God number one. Don't ever say that, because you're assuming he's in the same category with everyone else. You don't keep God number one. God's in a box all to himself. There is no second. He's not like us, just bigger. He's in a category completely distinct from everything else that exists, and he's there alone. And your great desire, the greatest desire of your heart, the greatest petition of your heart should be, oh God, in my life, my great desire above all other prayers is that you be esteemed by my heart without any competing loyalties above all else. You are there separate and distinct from everything. And Lord, that this same thing be in my wife. That my wife see you this way, as above all other things and esteemed above all other things. And that my children and that my fellow church members see this, that the world sees it. That's the great petition of my heart.